Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for joining. We'll give it about 30 seconds, let folks gather in, and then we will get started. So thank you for your patience. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. We have a great fireside chat that's getting ready to kick off here. We have two great co-founders and CEOs, Bob Lamb with ShardSecure and Josh Cantor with leafplanner. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We're going to go through the chat. I'll let the folks introduce themselves, and then we'll go from there. And then after we wrap up, I'm just going to do a quick, literally 3-slide overview about ShardSecure, and then we'll go into Q&A. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to put them into the Q&A button on the right, I believe. And we will cover all those questions at the end. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bob Lamb and Josh. Go ahead, guys. It's all you.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Bob Lamb. I'm the CEO, co-founder of ShardSecure. Very, very pleased today and super excited to have one of our customers joining me in this hopefully very interesting webinar. Josh Cantor, who is the CEO and co-founder of leafplanner. Josh, good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for having me, Bob, and ShardSecure, and thanks to everybody who's online with us today.
Thank you, Josh. Josh, why don't we start by asking a question. Let me ask you, tell us a little bit more about leafplanner and what you do and what's your mission.
Sure. leafplanner, I'd say generally probably falls into the, not really quite the fintech, but maybe the wealth tech space, if you will. It really comes from my own story and background and as an attorney and in the family office world, and happy to talk about that. But the idea of leafplanner is really to help families of complexity or families of wealth essentially have a new and better way to collect, to organize, to map out all of the information, all of the relationships, all of the ways that structures fit with assets and liabilities and whatever, into almost a mind map of the family and the family enterprise. It really is designed to provide a better educational platform for family members, new advisors to the family, really to empower family members to have access to information that they might not otherwise have or know how to access. And ultimately, quite frankly, really providing for a much more comprehensive and efficient succession of information when the ultimate death or incapacity or other transitions really occur. So it's kind of a new piece of our space in this kind of wealth advisory industry, and we're really excited about where it's going.
That sounds great. So Josh, I mean, your customer base, as you said, ultra high net worth, and they certainly have a lot of sensitive information, and they, in many cases, a relatively secretive group of people, right? I live in New York City, so I know how those folks are in a way. Can you tell us more about how they look at our sensitive data with innovative software as a service provider like yourselves, and how do they look at large cloud providers like AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google, IBM of the world?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, for me, I started out in the family office world probably 22 years ago. I don't remember when some of the real cloud stuff, like Box and Dropbox and things like that were starting. My recollection is those weren't even around yet. And so in the family office world, at least the ultra high net worth family office world, I'd say back then, there was a real hesitation to move toward anything that was kind of cloud-based, and everybody was really insistent that things be installed on local servers, controlled within your office environment, all that kind of stuff. And so obviously we've seen a shift over the last couple of decades into true cloud computing, and obviously now AWS and all these other systems, and we actually happen to be hosted on AWS. And I think people have gotten certainly more acclimated to that and are more willing to do it. We've been live for about 18 months as a company, and I don't get a lot of that old pushback that I would have gotten 15, 20 years ago of, oh, no, we need to have a local installation. But I will tell you that cybersecurity is the number one by far question that I get when I talk to every customer in every presentation, in every conversation. It's how are you protecting my data? And the AWS answer is great, and it goes so far, and people seem to be more or less satisfied with it. But it's really, frankly, when we start layering in all the other answers to our security protocols. And really, as you're indicating, we're dealing with high net worth, ultra high net worth, family office clients and a clientele that is highly protective, as they should be, highly secretive, as maybe they should be or shouldn't be. You can decide that. Most of those New York co-ops that are probably in an LLC and in a trust and into this and into that, so you can't find it. And we're, of course, in some respect, offering a picture of what that looks like. And that picture is intended for an audience, only the audience who's intended to see that picture. And we don't want anybody else seeing that picture. So it's really an important issue for us to be able to protect that client data and for our clients to know that they can have that full confidence in us and what we're doing. Critically important.
It's good to hear. I mean, the cloud providers, as like you mentioned, AWS, right? They have something called shared responsibility model. So those guys actually done a much better job. I've done a very good job in recent years about securing the infrastructure. But the data itself is actually the customers and solution provider like yourself responsibility. So it's actually very good to hear that they're actually more receptive now to allow and put the data in the cloud. As you know, we are in the data protection business, and we are proud to have you as a customer. Can you share with us and the audience how we have been helping you and what kind of experience you have in working with us?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, it's been a great experience so far. We obviously kind of stumbled into each other in early days, at least early days for leafplanner, later days for you guys. It's been fabulous. I mean, I think, we had a relatively seamless implementation, and we can obviously talk about that. It's less important than what for leafplanner, the ability to talk about what I consider the most cutting edge security protection of our customer data, our client data, is just, it's invaluable. I mean, it really distinguishes us. It's, I say when cybersecurity becomes the number one question I get, and I love being able to go through, I kind of have to go through the motions of talking about our front end and above industry standard password protection and two-factor authentication and end-to-end encryption. And my answer to most people is those are table stakes. Everybody expects those at this point. And it's really when I get to start talking about implementation of ShardSecure that I get to get excited and say, we're doing something that I think, ShardSecure is revolutionizing what I think is, I'm not a tech person, so I'll say I think it's revolutionizing and where the industry is going to go in terms of data protection. And so for us to be able to talk about the ShardSecure process and how that's protecting our client data, and again, how important the protection of that client data is. I'm of an age where I know you guys are going to talk a little about what ShardSecure actually does, so you probably won't be amused that I often talk about it. I remember a movie once where there was some thing where they were like shredding paper and putting it in different dumpsters around the city. That's how I, at my age, that's how I get to talk about what ShardSecure does for us. And it's great. And our client base gets it, and they're excited about it, and they've never heard of it. And they're really appreciative that we're out there thinking about, staying at the cutting edge of data protection for, again, this most highly sensitive data. So, for us, what ShardSecure has done is obviously present a really very real and tangible solution, but from a marketing and client benefit standpoint, I just can't tell you how valuable it is to us.
Well, you just made my day. It's nothing better than hearing from a happy customer. But thank you for the kind words, obviously. And we're proud to be working with you and partnering with you, and we grow together. We're still pretty early stage company, so we're looking forward to growing with our businesses together and helping each other out. Why do you think trust is so important these days? I mean, obviously you're dealing with high net worth families, and we're dealing with security customers, right? We're dealing with you, luckily, and but some in like larger organizations, we work with innovative companies like you. We also work with Fortune 500 financial services and healthcare companies. Like those are, trust is a priority for both your clientele and my clientele. And it's in the world, it seems to be getting more challenging to get the trust.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think things are changing, and how do you look at the world this day that's going to impact your business?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the way you're asking that question. I mean, I think that trust as a commodity is probably on the decline. Whether that relates to kind of where the whole world is at the moment, and what is true and what is not true, and all these kinds of things, right? In our part of the industry, I'd say less it's important to have the technical answer, and that's great. I think in our part of the industry, in the ultra high net worth and family office space, trust is wildly important, because you have people making decisions based on who's presenting it to them. One of the advantages I have, I leafplanner, as I sort of indicated at the beginning, comes from my own personal story, running a family office, taking over when my dad passed away, the complexity in our family and all the things that we had to address, and seeing a need in this ultra high net worth and family office space that wasn't being met. But I walk into a room and talk about what leafplanner does, and I need that trust. I need those clients. I need that audience to understand I am their peer. I am, providing a solution to them. And then they are trusting me that we have vetted and are providing the best possible solutions when they ask me that cybersecurity answer. For us, I'd say, as opposed to, of course, many of your clients who are bigger and have full cybersecurity teams and IT departments, and I'm often dealing with a small family office they're relying on the fact that we're relying on, that we've done that due diligence, that we're providing that answer. And so that trust is just critical to our sales process, to our marketing, to who we are as a company, and the kind of the ethos of the company. So it's really, really important.
Yeah, I think it's good to hear. I think the simplicity of our platform, the ShardSecure platform, is very important. So I think I'm glad that you're sharing that. And
well, when somebody like me can describe it, Bob, you've hit a level of simplicity that our customers are going to understand.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I appreciate it. From a technical perspective, right? We don't use an agent. We call agent as security platform or data privacy platform. So that's a big differentiation from many other platform software solutions, security software solutions out there. Maybe we can touch on regulatory compliance. Right, compliance is a major topic always. You and I talked about SOC 2. I know you're thinking about, in the process of doing that, and can you talk about how important it is to you, and how we might be helping you on that?
Yeah, sure. So again, obviously, the compliance side of this. For us, it's going to be, our clientele tends to be, a direct to consumer, albeit consumer is a high net worth, ultra high net worth family office client. Ultimately, we also are presenting to and working with enterprise level customers. So registered investment advisors, multifamily offices, accounting firms, law firms, family advisors, whoever is in that ecosystem. And so the more you get into that enterprise level, as you certainly know better than I do, the more, again, we're going to get pushed through security audits and their own due diligence. And so for us, again, I'd say, I don't think it's just checking the box. I think we're informing those auditors, so to speak, or whatever they are, about something that they may not even know about, the implementation of ShardSecure. And that, again, is helping us get, especially because, quite frankly, we're not SOC 2 compliant yet. Part of that is because we're a small team, we're 18 months old. We don't have the processes and the procedures and the number of people it takes to, frankly, stay compliant with really SOC 2 procedures, right? So for us, the ability to point to ShardSecure and to pass that audit, we have passed enterprise level security audits. And I'm sure, I guess they didn't come back and tell me this, but I'm sure that having ShardSecure there was a significant piece of our being able to pass that at this early juncture of our company. So, and we look forward to really looking at the whole SOC 2 process and how does ShardSecure help us, get across that hurdle, not just from can we check the box on all the documents, but can we actually show that we're protecting our client data in, again, a unique and cutting edge way. So I think, again, ShardSecure's implementation with leafplanner is a really important part of the whole security protocol, the whole customer trust journey, and that whole audit journey.
Yes, good to hear. Well, enough about ShardSecure. Tell us more about leafplanner. What's next? What's your vision and what's your plan to really build a very interesting and hopefully a major platform for wealth tech, right?
Yeah, it's it is. Again, as I said, this kind of comes from my story. My dad passed away fairly unexpectedly, and I came in to set up more formally a family office for our family and deal with all this stuff. And we had a really complicated enterprise structure. We were filing 750 entities tax returns a year. We were in what was a 33-year battle with the IRS, and lots of complexity around our family. And I would say every family of wealth has complexity, whether that's that you've got a couple of homes and a significant list of private investments or a dozen trusts or really whatever it is. Everybody's got their own level of complexity. Complexity just is part of, frankly, first world life at this point. And so leafplanner, I'm excited to see how much it's helping families. It helps people sleep at night, not from a data security standpoint. That's your job. It helps people sleep at night knowing that, executors and trustees and family members and spouses and partners know that, if the inevitable happens, whether it's the heart attack, the bust, the disease, the just old age, that these things do happen. We have transitions, we have, succession, and an effective succession of information is something that people really don't focus on. Most of the time, I think in business and even in the family office world, we talk about succession. And succession means, how do we replace Bob? How do we replace Josh, right? What's the position that needs to be replaced? What's maybe the skill set that needs to be replaced? It's not what's in Bob's head, what's in Josh's head, what are all the relationships, how does it all fit together? So for us, it's that education, that empowerment, and that succession of information that's so important, and nobody's been able, I think, to capture. I've been in this wealth advisory industry for the last 25, 35 years, depending on how I count it, and nobody's cracked that nut. We all talk about the right things. We all talk about educating family members, engaging family members, preparing family members, but we don't have the tool set to do it. And so leafplanner, I hope, is really kind of this whole new area of how do you create a tool to do that in a really effective, I think for us, a really beautiful way. And then in terms of kind of where are we going, I'd say, and how do we then integrate with, because all of these families and family offices are using other tools. So how do we better integrate with those tools? We're not trying to move people off of different tools. We want to be an overlay to many, many other tools that are in the wealth advisory industry. And so we're really looking at how do those integrations work better? How do we continue to, I'd say, innovate? What do families need? What do families want? And so it's an exciting time for us to see the adoption that we've already had, and then kind of where can we go with it and where can we take it?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear the passion that you have in building this platform. That's terrific, and congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
Like all the success that you guys, early success you guys made. I mean, it's a terrific platform for a lot of folks that really need this, right? I mean, like sleep better at night, as you said, like, I think that's important. You and I talked about something before we started the broadcast. I mean, you're in the wealth management industry, wealth tech industry. We're in cybersecurity, and the economy is changing. It's a little bit uncertain. How is it impacting your business? How is it impacting your customer base? Or, I mean, obviously they probably even care more about the data, right? The sensitive data. Are you seeing any major issues with your customer base in terms of the changing interest rate, inflation, everything?
Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of change. I mean, I think over the last several years, I guess I'll say, although again we've been working on this only for the last couple of years. What's interesting to me, you have obviously the economic impacts, and I would say to answer that, as you and I were talking about, we're not seeing a lot of change. We're not seeing a lot of change in behavior. We're not seeing a lot of people, storing up dry powder for the next deal that comes along and things like that. My sense is that in the world the pool that we swim in, people are life is just moving on fairly normally. I mean, obviously everybody's cognizant of rising interest rates, or now flattening maybe interest rates. Everybody's certainly cognizant that if we don't have a soft landing, and I'm not sure the Fed's ever actually accomplished a soft landing. So that there's a recession on the horizon, and what does that mean to certain things? I think one of the interesting things for us is that we're seeing is that things like, frankly, COVID, it has had a more significant impact on us because, first of all, our price point isn't so high that families generally can obviously, afford or not afford or want to spend the money or not spend the money for what we're doing. But things like COVID have really brought it home, right? That this whole idea of education and succession of information and sleeping well at night has value and is really, really important. So it's interesting for us as a microcosm just of a business. It's less that. I do think we're seeing at our enterprise level clients, we have to get into that budget cycle just like anybody else and figure out how that's going to work. And maybe that's where we may see people say, hey, we're saving, we're cutting back budgets as we anticipate a recession. And so maybe we're a year or two off from implementation of leafplanner at the enterprise level. We haven't seen that yet, but I can imagine that, being a conversation we're going to have. So we're just economically, we're not seeing a lot of impact yet. More again, seeing the other things happening in the world that are driving business in a way that's actually, I hate to say it, but it's kind of positive, not negative.
More paranoid, right? And then they want to make sure they are prepared for any unforeseen circumstances like orange sky in New York City.
Exactly. Right. The other thing I think for us that's interesting is just, the trend in the wealth industry over the last, say, generation has been from one of secrecy. The traditional patriarch held the information with an iron fist and didn't let anybody in. And the trend over the last generation has been to more transparency, more family engagement, more preparedness, more understanding, so that there's not that old, open the will at the funeral and all of a sudden it's like, we're either have surprises that somebody was cut out of the will or even what's in the will or whatever it is. So that whole transparency and shift toward transparency is also really positive for us. And of course, in our industry, everybody is, of course, abuzz with talking about the show Succession and, all the terrible things that happen in that show. So, it's the trends are moving with us, I think.
That's good. It's good to hear. What are the challenges? I mean, seems like you guys are doing well, and as a company, as a early, as an innovative, platform. What are the challenges that you are still seeing out there?
For us as a company, I'd say that the biggest challenges for us, one is I'd say like any young entrepreneurial company, although I do like to say that, look, I'm not obviously, as anybody watching can see from the color of my hair, I'm not a 30-year-old entrepreneur who's jumped into this, right? This is 35 years of experience that led me to say, I want to go fill this need. But being a young company, and so, the continuity of the company is a challenge to describe and make sure people are comfortable with, because again, people are trusting us with sensitive data and with a solution. They want us to be here 20 years from now. And 18 months in, that's hard. The other real challenge for us, quite frankly, is, it's frankly a marketing question. is we're a nice to have. The way most people look at what we do, we're a really nice to have. People get it as soon as they see it. What they don't understand is why it's I must have it, right? ShardSecure for me is an easy, I must have it, right? It is, how am I going to demonstrate to my clients that we are doing everything possible to protect their data? That's ShardSecure. I got to have it. But for our clients, we haven't cracked the nut yet of how to make sure they understand this is really important. This is not hey, that'd be nice to have. It's I must have. So it means our sales cycle is pretty long. Some people sign up in 2 seconds, and some people I'm still talking to 12 months later. No one says no, interestingly, or very few people say no, but they might say later.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that's a good to hear in terms of what you're seeing, the challenges out there as well. Joe, we have Joe Sorio on, our VP of Product here. Joe, any questions you want to ask Josh?
This was great. I mean, you guys covered a lot of ground in not a lot of time. It'd be interesting to hear, and I know you're not a developer, Josh, but from an integration perspective, was the development team screaming at you for going ShardSecure, or was it fairly straightforward for them in terms of implementation and rollout?
I'd say somewhere in between. It wasn't. They certainly weren't screaming. I think there was their own learning curve of getting up to why do we need this? Is it adding anything, or just is it adding, marketing? Frankly, my answer at the time, since I'm not sure I understood it, was that's enough. But I think as everybody got through understanding it and our own due diligence on ShardSecure and the implementation process, I don't think looking in the rearview mirror, anyone on our development team or internally at the company would say anything but thank goodness we did this.
Thanks for again. That's awesome. So, Josh, just curious, like as a company or as a customer, what are the criteria that you use in selecting a technology vendor like us, right? I mean, I think it's actually something that we want to learn, we want to hear so that we can do better, but also many other companies that in our space or in technology want to know, right? What is your criteria in selecting a vendor, assuming that we meet the technology checkbox requirement?
That's really interesting, and you and I obviously hadn't talked about this, so this one is by no means staged. So hopefully I'll answer this in a way that you're okay with. I think it goes back to your comment about trust. We're a tiny company. I'm not a technology person. We had some ability to do some due diligence, and it's one thing when you're picking Box and Dropbox and some of these other kinds of things that have been out there for a long time. For us, picking you guys was a big deal. And we had some concern about it. And one of the things, frankly, that gave me a lot of trust was we were introduced, of course, through a mutual venture capital investor in your firm, and who we, as wearing my family office hat, are investors in. And so it really comes back, at least in part, to not only checking that box, but that trust that was a whole team who are steeped technology investors and had done their due diligence and knew you guys, and were willing to put their imprimatur on you to say to us, Josh, as a Cantor family member, and then leafplanner by extension, that these are good guys and we should work with you. So that trust factor is important, especially for us as a little company.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're saying this a year after, right? That's the key thing. I appreciate that. Joe, I think we almost time for opening up for Q&A. Shall we?
Yeah, let's do the quick overview on ShardSecure. I think we have a couple minutes for that. Yeah, and then we'll dive into
your microphone.
Oh, is this better?
Yes.
Okay, apologies. All right, I'm old school wired. All right, so just in terms of overview, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. Our mission in life, as sort of came out during the conversation, is to simplify data security, privacy, and resilience. And really, if you look at where we focus, it's around file level protection. It's protecting unstructured data, which a couple of things going on there. First, it's growing at a tremendous rate in terms of unstructured data, and it's been largely ignored by the industry. Typically, when we talk about data security, folks think about large databases and places where there's account numbers and social security numbers, but it's never really about the files and the folders. So that's really where we come in. Another huge benefit is that we break apart the infrastructure access piece from the data access piece, basically providing an additional layer of data security and privacy, which is really important, especially as you look at folks that are going to cloud or folks that have outsourced arrangements as far as storage. And the way we do this is by essentially sharding the data, breaking it up into little bits and storing it across multiple storage locations. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But because of that, we're able to introduce data resilience capabilities, which means if for whatever reason a storage location or a bucket gets compromised or tampered with, or there's an outage, we still have parity across that data and are able to continue to operate and present the data, as well as do some integrity checks and some self-healing capabilities to be able to reconstitute that data no matter what happens. And then because of the flexibility we offer, there's some optimization potential, whether it be for cost or performance, because we're storage agnostic. So in terms of how the platform works, You can think of it as an abstraction layer that works between things on the left that are data producers and data consumers, and things on the right, which are storage locations, which the data ultimately resides. So that data is basically protected before it's written, as it's going through the ShardSecure platform, and then it's accessed transparently through the ShardSecure platform into the various storage locations where the data is being stored. So it's agentless, very minimum performance impact, and integration is really just a few lines of code where now you're pointing, the application is pointing to the ShardSecure API, which is S3 compliant, for example, rather than pointing to the storage location directly. And all of that security is basically just along for the ride. There's no need to, encrypt the data or decrypt the data on write and read. It's just a matter of being able to go in and fetch that data. So last slide, promise, and then we'll go into Q&A. We have a very robust partnership network, and we focus in a lot of different areas. So from a data security perspective, work very closely with the likes of Entrust, for example. On the professional services side, KPMG, who's both an investor and a partner. So we're very excited about that relationship. It's been very, very good for both of us, I think. And then on the cloud provider side, obviously, AWS, Azure, Google, we are listed on the Azure and AWS marketplace, and we have a co-sell agreement with Microsoft. And then on the data management side, the likes of NetApp and Comprise, where we bring in the security element to what those folks do from a data management perspective. So with that, let me go ahead and stop sharing. Again, please go ahead and enter any questions into chat, and let's see what we've got here. So let's see. Yeah, so Josh, I think this question is for you. Has the implementation of ShardSecure sort of set you apart from other competitors within your space? How do you see? Do you see it as kind of a differentiator for you guys? I think you're muted, Josh.
Sorry about that. I'm in the interest of being protective. I then didn't unmute. Yeah, interesting that I say, of course, I don't think we have any competitors directly to what we're doing, because I think we're really kind of charting new territory. But nevertheless, I think, very importantly to what you're saying, yes, it's a huge differentiator and place that we can distinguish, because, as I said earlier, to me, when I start talking about bank level encryption and two-factor authentication and all the things that I would argue are table stakes to having conversation with anybody these days. And so everybody is parroting the same words, and you better be able to say those things. And so for us, ShardSecure is among the big differentiators, or is the big differentiator on our cybersecurity, other than some of the members of our advisory board, which are pretty impressive people on the cybersecurity space. But you guys are absolutely a key part of that, and key to not only the implementation of that, of course, but then key to that customer acquisition when we're satisfying the cybersecurity answer.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how is ShardSecure deployed? Is it on-prem or cloud? So I'll take this one. It's a very flexible platform. Basically, it could be deployed on-prem, in the cloud, or in multi-cloud environments. As I mentioned with the resilience piece, a lot of folks are concerned about outages and tampering and things like that. So being able to move into kind of this hybrid multi-cloud architecture is becoming more and more important and more prevalent as a use case. So certainly seeing a lot of interest there. But from a flexibility perspective, the platform is very, very flexible in terms of deployment.
Yeah, I think also, Joe, I think like in Josh's case, like the software as a service platform, we get integrated into that platform very easily, right?
Yeah, typically what we hear, and typically the way it's really designed is it's a few lines of code, as I mentioned earlier. So rather than point to the storage location and have to worry about all of the data encryption pieces, it's basically just a straight read write through the ShardSecure platform, and the security and privacy is sort of handled for you out of the box. So it makes the integration very, very easy. I believe that is it in terms of questions. So I wanted to thank you guys for a great conversation. Thank you, Josh, for joining us. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks.
This was really, really good. And I learned a couple of things, Josh. So thank you so much for that. And folks in the audience, thank you so much for joining. And we'll be talking to you soon. We do have a series of webinars that are coming up. And if you're subscribed to the channel, you will hear more about that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Josh, for spending the time, and we really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you soon. And sorry, my camera just switched off for no reason, but anyway,
No
have
worries.
a wonderful day and evening, everybody.
Thanks all. Bye now.
Thanks, you guys.